Oh, my. Talking about Jonathan Bobo, welcome in. Welcome
How's
back.
your Yankees doing as of late?
We have been losing regularly. We can't hit, we can't pitch, we can't do anything.
I think
comments like those.
I think Major League Baseball has a real problem in the Savannah Bananas. I think that craze is going around, the World Tour is going around the country, filling up stadiums. I've had a number of friends attend those games. I've started watching them. I've started watching baseball again. Very entertaining, and I think good for baseball.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's good for baseball, but I don't think it replaces Major League Baseball because of, and it won't even threaten it. I think it's obviously good for the game. It gets more people involved, but it's a totally different game.
It's the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
Yeah, very, very entertaining.
Yes.
We welcome in good friend of mine, fellow delegate, Geno Chiarelli. Geno, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning, friends. How are you?
Doing good. How you doing, buddy?
Doing wonderful. Staying busy, trying to stay cool and dry at the same time. We've been getting killed with rain here,
really?
As many parts of West Virginia have as well. It's been a nightmare.
It's in Morgantown,
we're
correct?
Strong. Say it again?
In Morgantown?
Yeah, lot of rain, lot of rampant weather, but we persist.
Okay. I do want to congratulate you on you just purchased a house with your fiance, Brooke. Congratulations on the engagement, Geno.
Thank you very much. We're very excited. We're very much looking forward to it. We had a house that popped up on the market a couple weeks ago at like 8 a.m. We had it under contract by 1, something we had to move on. We are very, very much looking forward to it.
Well, I look forward to Brooke moving up there and closer to us so that we can visit you more often. Let's get into some of the issues that you're working on. I know back in session you had a pretty controversial bill for the no camping. And I know Morgantown had a recent vote. Can you kind of give us a little background on that?
Yeah, sure. So I went into session with the idea of bringing up a municipal camping ban. It was legislation that was inspired by an ordinance that was passed by the Morgantown City Council in a very limited moment of wisdom. So there was a ballot initiative that was created by some of the councilors that were on the losing side of the vote. They acquired enough signatures to force the city council to reconsider their actions, and the city council was given 2 options at that point after they initially passed the ordinance. They were either able to overturn the ordinance or they were going to send it to a vote. So while this was in the process of going to a vote, that's what the council wanted to do. I brought the legislation forward to Charleston to see what kind of support I could get among other legislators. And it's funny, too, you mentioned that it was controversial, and yet it passed 89-9, I believe. So the majority of our legislators were very much in support of what I was trying to do. Where a lot of the controversy comes from is a lot of the leftist activists that exist in these political spaces. They were very much against this as a concept. They had no alternatives, of course, because a lot of people that kick and scream when it comes to Republicans doing anything in Charleston, they never really have any alternative plans or ideas or suggestions. It's usually just crying, wailing, and screaming for the sake of being seen. But I got the legislation through committee, made it through the House. It went over to the Senate. It went through the Senate Judiciary Committee. I believe that it was improved in the Senate committee. It went to the floor, and then on second reading over in the Senate, it was pulled and moved to the Senate calendar, where it ultimately died.
Do you have a reason?
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you know why it was pulled?
There's a lot of games that are played in Charleston. Believe it or not, politics happens down there a whole lot, both in and out of the chamber. I have never gotten a straight answer as to why that legislation was pulled so suddenly, but I can tell you that I will most certainly be trying to bring something like this back next year, because I know for a fact that the majority of West Virginians believe that this is the right kind of legislation. It's the kind of things that our state needs, because when it came down to the vote in Morgantown, and Morgantown is not a conservative or Republican area by any means, it's overwhelmingly leans Democrat, the vote ultimately said that the voters wanted to keep this legislation in place. And they are saying that because I think over the past decade or so, we have all watched Morgantown the quality of life here has taken a very steep decline. It is not the same town as it was when I moved here in 2013 to go to school. You used to be able to go downtown, and there was never any problems when it comes to homelessness or crime or open-air drug use. You didn't have to worry about any of these things. There were tons of different businesses downtown, and I would argue that High Street in Morgantown was vibrant and pretty much the heartbeat of all of Monongalia County. And now when you go there, it's people don't even want to take their kids to the library downtown anymore because of the things that they may or may not be exposed to. We've had crime go up. We've had people being murdered. Businesses don't want to go open up downtown. They don't even want to open up in city limits to begin with, but especially they don't want to go into downtown Morgantown because of the things that they're going to have to deal with. We have a major, major, major homelessness problem, and I think that moving forward, homelessness, drug addiction, it's going to continue to be my number one issue, and I'm going to advocate this for as long as I'm elected.
So that makes me get to my second question for you, Geno, and kind of pivoting to harm reduction. I was reading an article the other day that a lot of counties, a lot of cities, a lot of states are leading to changing the way they do their harm reduction programs because enabling with the with needles and smoking I don't even know what they call it, a crack pipe or whatever it is. Can you go into harm reduction and how we need to pivot that the way we do things?
Sure. So harm reduction this is a very, very controversial topic. I'll give you that. This evokes a lot of feelings because when you talk about anything related to addiction, it's very emotional. People are very, very personally invested in this for all sorts of reasons. You'd be very hard-pressed to find someone in West Virginia that isn't 1 degree of separation away from someone that has experienced addiction themselves. But harm reduction typically as a program is designed to, as the name suggests, reduce the overall harm that a drug user incurs upon themselves while they are using. There are some elements of harm reduction that I wholeheartedly support. I've looked into what harm reduction programs in a lot of states and a lot of cities do, and a lot of them hand out things like alcohol wipes and vitamins and chapsticks, and they do a lot of these clinics that offer harm reduction services, also offer free healthcare services. Those are the kinds of things that I can absolutely get behind. I don't think that's a problem. On the other hand, there are more controversial elements of harm reduction program. There are needle exchanges. A lot of places around the world now are starting to do things like safe injection sites. There are places, I believe, that in Canada that are now handing out free drugs, fentanyl. There are places that hand out smoking apparatuses. That's your pipes and foils and things of that nature. That was one of the bills that I had passed last year. We no longer hand out, these programs are no longer allowed to hand out smoking devices in West Virginia.
What was their thought in handing out the pipes? How did that help?
Well, the logic that is used behind this is they would say that someone who was offered a means of smoking a particular substance would incur less harm on their body than they would if they were to inject it. If you take that fact in a vacuum, that actually might be true. That's not what we're actually debating here. But when you look at this fact in context, you are still enabling someone to use drugs. You are still providing them the means to get high in some way. And I think that the goal of harm reduction should be, yes, we want to reduce harm, but at the same time, I think that a successful harm reduction program is going to be steering people away from using drugs. A lot of the programs that we have and a lot of the ones that I've have experience with is that they kind of just say, well, you keep using drugs as long as you want. We'll make it as easy as possible on you. And I have a philosophical objection to that.
Jonathan?
Well, I mean, I've seen, getting back to the pipes and stuff, didn't pipes and smoking devices for drugs, didn't they used to be illegal? They used to be like backroom things. I was getting a pizza a couple nights ago next to a vape shop, and I just looked in the door, and they had hundreds of pipes. Wasn't that a backroom operation in the past? When did that become, right in our faces? When did that become completely legal?
Well, it's kind of made changes over time, and we've seen, at least in West Virginia, we've seen different laws pop up to try and address the issue. I know Clarksburg a while ago banned the sale of pipes within city limits, and a lot of these places, too, what's really alarming, especially something that I see here in Morgantown, is we've had an unbelievable number of vape shops, head shops move into the county, an alarming amount, and I would probably say a suspicious number of these stores have moved in. But you go in there, there's tons of glass, all sorts of apparatuses to smoke marijuana, but they are pretty open about the fact now that they have sold in the past before pipes that are not meant for smoking weed. There are pipes meant for smoking meth. They sell them right out of these stores, and I think that a lot of these things have come up because it got to the drug addiction, the drug epidemic got to a fever pitch in the culture. It said, we have to do something about it, and a lot of people have different interpretations of what that actually means. A lot of people want to crack down. They think there needs to be a heavy criminal justice element. A lot of people think that this is a healthcare issue, and it needs to be treated like it's a disease. I believe that there is nuance. I believe that there are elements of both of these angles that need to be incorporated. But I think if we're going to move forward, I think we need enhanced criminal penalties for those that deserve it. I think we need expanded healthcare options, legitimate healthcare options for people that need it. And I think we have to crack down on programs that do nothing but enable use.
I know we have medical marijuana is legal in West Virginia. What I've noticed is at these vape shops or CBD, Kratom. I mean, I don't even know all the names for the different synthetic marijuana or THC. When did that become such a huge
legal industry?
And
It seems like it's something that's come, again, it kind of came out of nowhere. I remember discovering maybe 4 or 5 years ago, somebody told me that they were going to the gas station to get Delta 8 or Delta 9, one of the two. There's so many numbers. And I obviously asked what that is, and he says, oh, it's basically legal weed. And, my jaw kind of just dropped in that moment, because you think that in a place like West Virginia, and then you hear legal weed, you think, okay, well, I must have missed something. And this was obviously long before I was involved in the legislature. But it's another thing that has come up, and I think that it's largely unsafe. I think a lot of these chemicals and these devices that are used to smoke them are illicit. I don't think that they are properly regulated in any capacity. I've seen the labels of the packaging that is these materials, that it comes from China. And not only are we talking about obvious trademark infringement, but we are talking about packaging that is specifically marketed to kids, products that are marketed to kids. I mean, I've seen packages of what looks like Skittles. Even everything is the exact same as you would find in a grocery store for a package of Skittles, down to the nutrition label and the ingredients list. But there's always a sticker that's affixed to it, and it says this product contains Delta 9, Delta 8, whatever it is. You look at all these vapes that are now offered in a lot of these stores, and the vapes are shaped like highlighters and like Sharpies. They're shaped like flash drives. We have a major, major problem, and I think a lot of these industries, I do believe that a lot of them are wicked, but I think that they're smart in what they're doing, because they're trying to get kids hooked. And if you get a child hooked on a product, you're likely to have a customer for a very long time.
Is there a way for our legislature to regulate? I mean, obviously there's a way.
Absolutely.
Is there the stomach in the legislature to say, hey, this Delta 8, this Delta 9, this is marijuana. This gets people high. We're going to make this illegal in the state. Or we're going to say you can't sell these pipes. I mean, is there a groundswell, or have people talked about that? And why, if they haven't, why haven't they?
So we've had a lot of discussions like this, and I would say that the appetite is definitely there. I think when it comes down to actually passing something, you kind of have to thread the needle in a lot of ways. We were successful in banning the sale of pipes across the state of West, or not the sale, handing out pipes of harm reduction programs. So we can make progress. You just kind of have to find the right time and the right method to go about it. I know that Senator Mike Stewart last year or the year prior, I don't remember which one, had a bill that tried to address the regulation of a lot of these products. But the problem that we run into, and Hornby will attest to this, is there are a lot of people that exist in the legislature that are very, very libertarian-minded when it comes to drugs. And that ultimately, their philosophy is, well, it's up to you what you want to do. If you do not want to make buy these products, that's entirely up to you. A lot of other people have different perspectives. I think that this is a cultural common good issue, and I struggle to find empathy or sympathy for people that are selling poison to children.
Well, and that's the thing. I would think certainly you can regulate something that's being sold to a child, right? If an adult says, even that libertarian viewpoint, you have to be an adult. You have to be in whatever that age limit may be, or at least mental capacity may be, to make a decision for yourself. That a child going, hey, cool Skittles. Oh, and they make me feel really funny. You can't have that.
I got a question.
I completely agree.
Can you make, I mean, obviously you can, but why has nobody proposed a bill? I mean, because we see these vape shops get busted all the time. You know, this vape shop was closed down today. They were raided because they were selling to children. And then 2 days later, they're open again. Can we put really onerous criminal penalties on people who sell Delta 8, Delta 9, Kratom to underage people? Put teeth to it.
Well, I think we do have a number of bills, and there were a number of proposals from many, many people for these things. The bottom line is, it's legal to sell these products because they're not marijuana. Oh, the question we need to be looking into, or maybe the funding we need to be looking into, is, are these? Let's say you take gummies. You know, the gummies is a totally different meaning these days than it used to. Does that lead to taking Kratom or Delta 8? Does that then lead to smoking marijuana? Does that then lead to opioid? Is there a correlation between this and the opioid crisis? I don't know the answer to that. I know in the next segment we're going to have Kresha on, and she'll talk about our journey that we've had through our son, and Geno's going to stay with us. But I know that wasn't the path he went down. It didn't start with gummies and these vape shops. It just seems there must be a lot of profit in these things, and I think we need more regulation over them, because I don't think we actually know where all these products are actually coming from, and if they are actually coming through legal means. You can't take cigarettes across state lines in the United States. All alcohol has to be sold through the state. So we have regulations for other things. It just seems this one, under the Department of Agriculture, seems like the wild, wild west to me.
Well, there used to be a Starbucks on every corner, or a Subway. For a while, there was a Subway on every corner. Now there's a vape shop on every corner. So it's definitely profitable. And the libertarian point of view, I'm in favor of small government, but I'm also in favor of protecting children. And there has to be a way to keep these things from getting sold to children. But then we have parents who go and buy the stuff and give it to their children.
Yeah. And that right there, that's actually one of the biggest things that we struggle with as a legislature. We can pass any regulation that we can dream of. We can look at any bill, any rule. We can open up any section of code that we want. But when it comes to putting pen to paper, we cannot create good parents. That is unfortunately completely out of our hands. We can do things to assist a good culture. We can do things to sort of prop up what we believe is a healthy society. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't make these decisions for parents, and that's what makes our job so frustrating, because we hear a lot about what we can do, what we need to do, but you can't. They talk about how you can't legislate morality, and this is one of those cases where I think a lot of it is going to revolve around sort of a cultural rejection of the things that we've seen develop over the last 10, 20, 30 years or so. We need to collectivize and say, we don't want these things in our community. We're going to reject them as a community, as neighborhoods, as schools, as families, and then I think from there you'll see the downstream effect. But like Mike Hornby just said, right now there's money. There's profit, and if people can make a buck, that's the system that we have. People will jump on that.
Geno, let's switch to addiction recovery and beds and the way you've worked in that field. I know there's not a one fixed problem, and I think somebody has to hit rock bottom and want to recover before they can go into therapy or things like that. But what are we working on as a state? What are things that you would suggest that we do to address this opioid crisis? I know we've got plenty of that opioid money out there. What should we be spending our money on to make this problem go away?
Sure. So obviously that's the $1 trillion question. How do we move forward? How do we tackle this problem? And it's a multifaceted, many-headed, very, very ugly monster that's very difficult to get a handle on because addiction looks so different for everybody. But it's something that you can point out as anybody can look at something and say, okay, there's a problem here. It's how do we move forward? That's the issue. So what I think that we have to do is I think we need to move forward on 3 tracks simultaneously. We're going to have to walk, chew gum, and snap our fingers all at the same time. I sort of mentioned this earlier. I think one of the biggest things that we have to do is I do think that there has to be an increased criminal justice element to a lot of this. I think that in West Virginia specifically, if you're going to come here and you're going to peddle poison and you're going to make money off of the sickness of our people, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you, and I think that you need to go to prison, and I think that you need to go to prison for a long time. I understand that that's can be resource intensive. I know that we already have a lot of problems in West Virginia state jails, but this is something where it's either pay now or you pay even more later by letting these people continue to do what they're doing. So I would say that we really need to crack down as a legal system on the traffickers and dealers. I would say that we need to clobber all of these programs that these predatory programs that enable, and the programs like a lot of our friends in Wood County are dealing with. There's these pop-up businesses where they set up beds, they get their Medicaid funding established, they get people in the door, doesn't matter where they came from, they don't collect any data, they don't do any valid treatment, they put them in there for 30 days, they kick them out after 30 days, they're on the streets in Parkersburg, but they got their check, they have a new bed, they just repeat the process over and over. It feels like money laundering, honestly, just
and what are they giving them as treatment drugs?
Say it again.
What is the drug that they're treating them with? I know there's two different options.
I would say that if it's going to be one of these inpatient treatment facilities, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a buprenorphine prescription, if it's Suboxone or Subutex. Those are a lot easier to get in West Virginia than something like methadone. Methadone is, there's currently a moratorium on methadone facilities in West Virginia. We only have 10 of them in the state. And that kind of leads into my third point here is that there needs to be valid healthcare options for the people that want it. I used to work at a methadone clinic here in Morgantown, and believe me, I've heard everybody's opinions about methadone. It's a mixed bag for sure. A lot of people have personal stories about relatives or family members that were on methadone and they never saw any success. And it might be true because methadone does not work for everybody. However, as an addictions counselor here, I saw methadone work for a lot of people. So there is no one-size-fits-all approach. I think we have to do a lot of things, and we have to create a united front. We have to work towards this. I really think that this should be the number one issue that we focus on as a legislature, because everybody, Mike, as you know, everybody goes down to Charleston to talk about their issue, whether it's economic development, labor force participation rate, child protective service crisis, foster care crisis, all of these areas, every single one of these areas is directly or indirectly impacted by an addicted population. And I think that if we really go all out on something like this, if we really put the pedal to the metal on addressing the opioid issue, I think that we would reap the rewards tenfold over the next 10, 20 years.
So we only have 60 seconds left on this segment. Geno, when it comes to these drugs that they're given, we have a moratorium on the methadone, but what about the other inpatient or day patient? Do we have a moratorium on those beds, or is it just for methadone?
I think the only moratorium that I know exists for that kind of in this realm is on methadone clinic specifically. Okay. I also know that I believe 2 years ago we capped the number of beds that can be set up in a county because of the problems that they were having over in Wood. They were inundated with all of these services that were specifically offered to individuals that weren't from West Virginia. People were being bussed in and dropped off. These businesses set up solely for the purposes of getting them in the door for a month, collecting Medicaid checks, and then kicking them out. So we limited the number of beds to sort of temporarily halt the influx of problems that they're having.
You're listening to TV10 and WRNR. We will be right back with our last guest, my beautiful wife, Kresha Hornby, and Geno Chiarelli. Welcome back to Eastern Panhandle Talk. We are in the last segment of the Tuesday show. Rob is on a much-needed vacation, and he will be back next week, so you just have to deal with us for another 4 days. The Badger will be running the Friday game, so that'll be interesting. We welcome in this segment. We've got Delegate Geno Chiarelli on the phone. Geno, you can still hear us, I believe?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And then sitting right next to you is my beautiful wife, Kresha. Welcome.
Good morning.
I think this is the first time we've been on the show together.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. So, Geno, Matt, Jonathan, we're going to share our story. We have had the most terrible time with our son trying to get him help. And I know this is a Fourth Amendment issue, but for us, for a young man that is continuously doing harm to himself, we think, doing drugs and going this far, overdosing, is doing harm to yourself. Getting him the help he needs when he doesn't want the help is our issue. And I know we don't want to lock up adults for any reason, but there has to be something that we can do across the state. I know, Geno, we had a bill that came through, was it Mike Stewart's bill that came through this year through health that addressed this kind of issue?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So Senator Stewart had the bill that was named after a young man that was dealing with some similar circumstances, and his mother came to testify before the health committee over in the House to sort of relive her tale and explain the genesis of the bill and why it arrived in the way that it did. The basic premise of the bill was that basically people could be involuntarily committed for the purposes of dealing with addiction. That's a very broad summary of the bill. There were a lot of finer working points in it, and it's a tough one to tackle because I so definitely support something like that. I think that some people need to be helped, frankly, whether they want to be or not. However, when you talk about the deprivation of somebody's rights, when you're involuntarily stripping them of their own ability for self-governance, in that manner, you have to do it very, very carefully. And the one problem that I heard with this bill specifically was that there were a lot of working problems. There were a lot of implementation issues that people foresaw. So the initially envisioned product that we had was not what ultimately ended up passing. So gotcha. I definitely think it's something that's worth revisiting. I think that we should have whole meetings dedicated specifically for this topic. I think that this makes a useful it's a useful thing to discuss during interims, but I think that we should revisit because again we're getting to a breaking point here where we need to start making big decisions when it comes to addiction, and I think that this is one piece that can play into the puzzle.
And I'll give Chairman of Committee of Health some credit. He has Evan Worrell. Delegate Worrell has invited Kresha and I down to address your committee, to address some of those concerns. I'm going to turn over to Kresha now. If you could let our audience know the journey we've been over the last couple of years and the frustration that you, and pushback that you've met. Maybe you could give us some background, Kresha.
Well, this whole problem is not going to be in a 15, 20-minute segment. This is going to take days to go through, but I have some bullet points. Our journey started many years ago. Andrew is 27, and his addiction started way back when he was early teens. It just escalated from there over the past, 3 years, 3-4 years. I do have to give a huge shout out to Delegate Heckert and to Kevin Knowles. Those are two of the ones that have been by our side throughout the whole journey. We have tried to do commitments with him, and everyone's like, oh, just go down and do a hygiene warrant for him. Okay, well, that's easier said than done because our state law says that you have to get them within a 24-hour period of them harming themselves or others. Well, what exactly does that mean, harming themselves or others? Because there's a 8-page paper that you have to fill out, and I have like 2 or 3 pages of everything that he was doing, and the hygiene commissioner denied my request. So the lady from East Ridge, Sandy, she said, don't get discouraged. This happens all the time. Let's go back and revisit this in like a day or 2. So I went back, filled out the papers. This time it was granted, but it wasn't easy. I had to plead my case. Not only did I have the therapist there, I invited the mayor, Kevin, to come down to help me because he has seen Andrew over the years. So we had the therapist, had the mayor. My oldest son, Matthew, was with us. So I had all of these people backing me. And then they actually give them an attorney. So now we're in the room with the judge, all of us, and now an attorney. And the attorney is stating, well, just because he's walking the roads, and let me back up, because he's not just walking the roads. He was walking in the dead of summer, barefoot, and walking out
in the
into
middle
traffic.
of the road. Yeah.
He had caused an accident that he was not even aware of. And this attorney is basically, and I understand that's his job. I do, I get that. But you could look at him and tell that his hygiene was off. He was filthy dirty, skin and bones, couldn't comprehend anything. He didn't even know that we were having this commitment hearing. He was behind the bars and was like, well, what are we doing? So with that being said, his attorney is still fighting to get him out. And I basically turned around as a mother and looked at the attorney and I told him, I said, if you let him go and something happens to him, this is on you. I just want you to know that. And finally, the hygiene commissioner was like, no, we can see that, there's a problem here. We're going to go ahead and commit him. And that is when he was sent down to St. Joe's Recovery in Somersville, an amazing facility down there. I cannot give them enough, kudos to them. I mean, they kept in contact with us. Andrew actually enjoyed it down there. It's not a facility where it's like Sharp, where they drug them further and just locked them in a room. They have things that they do there. They're allowed to go in the kitchen and cook. They have entertainment. They had Christmas parties. It was like a family.
And he was there how many months, Kresha?
He was only supposed to be there, I believe, 30 days, and he ended up staying 6 months.
And I'll say this, when he came out of that facility and he came back home, totally the same kid, like we were like, this is it. We finally got something. And then we ran into the roadblocks of trying to get him a job, trying to find him work, trying to get him back to society, get him back to living on his own in a place where he could do that. And the young man tried for a number of months, 6 to 9 months, I think it was. But he kept getting roadblocks. When he got his second interview for real jobs. He was doing odd jobs around. And that's when, because this drug addiction, he's got a record. He's a felon, essentially. So we were trying to get his record expunged, things like that. And that's when he fell back into drugs again. For whatever reason, he was in an accident, so he's got a lot of back pain. But now we're at this point where he's back in this place, and we feel like we have no options left. It's basically, hey, he has to really overdose or die before we can really help you.
And while Mike and I were in Italy, we received a phone call that he had overdosed and was found in the bathroom, and Narcan was administered to bring him back. And that is just devastating news to hear when you're so far away as a parent. So again, we get on the phone. First person we call is Kevin, and Kevin's like, let me see what I can do. He's making some phone calls. We're just doing everything we can. I have called the hospitals. I have called the 800 hotlines.
The Day Report Center.
The Day Report Center. I have called everybody known to man, and the answer that I get is, we are so sorry to hear about your son. This is devastating. Someone, of any age, but him being 27. The only advice I have to you is pray really hard that he will overcome this on his own, because he is 18. Or, unfortunately, you're going to have to start planning his funeral. That's the answers that I have received.
An opportunity to get him back to the St. Joe's where he had such success over those 6 months? Or
I have been in contact with the Jen, the lady down in St. Joe's, and she has been phenomenal. She's like, two ways to get him down there. One, he has to be willing to go on his own, which I have offered many times to take him. And the other option is to go back through the court system and plead his case, which is not easy to do.
Right. And of course, we'll try. It's just, we'll exhaust all the options. It seems to me, and obviously I have resources. I have a lot of friends around the community, but it seems to me I don't think I would have got him the help he had without being who I was, and I think that's unfair, because I think there are families across this state that are dealing with this exact issue and don't have the resources I have. It's something we need to address, and that's why I wanted Geno to stay on, because I know we had some things come up, and I know there's some Fourth Amendment rights we've got to talk about, but I think the hoops that you have to jump through to get somebody help should be a little more streamlined. And maybe we need to focus on that. I'm just looking for answers and just sharing our story.
It's just so scary, because it's all economic levels. It's great parents. It's bad parents. It's wealthy people. It knows no boundaries whatsoever, and it's just so sad that there's not a better method. And sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 times of getting treatment before it holds. And I mean, I know a lot of people who've come out on the other side and are great, are great, and I believe your son will be too, because he has you two behind him and helping him, and just sad.
Well, we've done 5 or 6, possibly more, I've lost count, of welfare checks. And I will give kudos to the West Virginia State Police Department and to our ambulance EMT workers, because when they came out, it wasn't like, oh, this is just another drug addict. We did our job, we did our welfare check, blah, blah, blah. These officers and the EMTs stood with me for over an hour trying to convince Andrew to go get help. They could have easily rolled in there, did their paperwork, and rolled out, and that's not what they did. They were phenomenal with working with me. They even took me to the side and was like, here's some other resources. You can try this, you can try that. And unfortunately, with him being an adult, there's nothing that I can do. I will go back to when we had him committed. The therapist at that point said, well, there is an option that you can do a guardianship. And I said, well, what does that entail? And she was like, well, it's basically like you would be taking guardianship of like a minor. So, but then anything that he does falls back on Mike and myself. So if he would go out and cause an accident, or he would go kill someone, or he would end up selling drugs to someone and they overdose, that would then fall back on us. And I'm like, no, as much as I want to help him and be able to take guardianship of him to where I can get him, I cannot jeopardize our business, our other children.
And I think that's where these conversations need to start happening. And I'm really thankful for Evan Worrell and Geno and people that are at the forefront of this, so that we can start these conversations to say, okay, what programs are working, like the one at St. Joe's, which truly was amazing. Maybe we need to invest in that, and then give parents or guardians the ability to help their children, if they're adults, through this certain process to get them into those facilities for a 3-month, 6-month term, because I don't think most times when you get committed, it's a 72 hours. So it's 72 hours is not going to do anything, right? 30 days is not going to change somebody's life. Right. There are programs out there that are 3 to 6 months. If they're voluntary and you go to them, they have a great, anything over 50% is a good turnout on this. Mm-hmm. As a state, we need to invest or look into, okay, what are the programs that are working, and how do we give parents or family members the way to get there, especially when it comes to drugs.
I'm thinking follow-up, right? I mean, the way that you're talking, he did well for a while, but Absolutely. When he couldn't find that job, when things aren't going, he's no longer able to kind of move forward, then he ends up moving backwards to something that he knows. Is there a way
moving to the job thing, mm-hmm. Didn't mean to interrupt you. There is a program, it's called Jobs and Hopes. I recently found out about that when I was down in Charleston, during session, and that is that's information that should be given out to all of these people who are going through the recovery process. Mm-hmm. When they leave, they shouldn't just have their bag of prescription medications, their Prozac, what have you. I believe they all get a bottle of like Narcan and that type thing. But let's give them resources. Mm-hmm. Let's give them, okay, you can go to Jobs and Hope and you can do this. You need to follow up with this therapist, those type things in order to help them succeed. Not mm-hmm. just say, here's your clothes. Thank you. I'm so glad you did such a phenomenal job here. You look great. We'll see you. Hopefully we won't see you again, that type thing.
Yeah, I think when he came out of St. Joe's, he had a lot of medication to keep, because he's got other issues too. So while he was on the medication, he seemed to do well. So once that follow-up stopped is when it could. And that leads me into something else you'll be hearing about later this week. We're having this company called Allison come over. They do free education, graduate about 7,000 people a day. They're an Irish company, but they work all around the world. But they've had great success with parolees, because I feel education is the key to any good job, and teaching them skills can get them somewhere. So with more details on that. Geno, you have anything to add?
That's, Kresha, I'm glad you mentioned the Jobs and Hope program. I think that's one of the greatest things that Governor Justice, now Senator Justice, has done. I think when it comes to addiction, there has to be this major shock to somebody's life cycle that breaks their day-to-day operations. And once you break that cycle, whether it's a 3 to 6 month stay somewhere, whether it's an overdose, whether it's participation in a methadone clinic, whether it's an inpatient stay, doesn't matter. Once that cycle is broken, there has to be something on the other side to assist with setting up a new cycle, a much healthier cycle. And very, very often, if not every single time, I would envision that new cycle including a job. I think a job is one of the most important things that somebody can have in life. I think it provides an unbelievable amount of stability. I think it's one of the most important aspects of someone's life, that they need a reason to leave the house every day, or at the least a reason to wake up if somebody works from home, that type of thing. So I think that's where one of the areas that we can assist with the most as legislators, because we can support policies, we can pass legislation, we can meet with out-of-state companies, we can meet with prospective business owners, we can encourage them through whatever means that we have available to us to prop up operations and begin employing people in West Virginia, because generally I would say that the more people that we have working in this state, the better outcomes that we're going to have. We have also a number of resources. We have an abundance of resources here, at least specifically in Monongalia County, for people that are suffering from addiction. We have a lot of resources dedicated to people that want help. The big challenge that we have to address moving forward, and we have to address this very, very carefully. This has to be done with a scalpel and not a butcher's knife. We have to address how we help people that unfortunately do not want help. And I think that this is a conversation that started this year during session, and I think it's a conversation that's going to continue going into session next year.
Yeah, I think we need to jail the people we're scared of, not the people we're mad at. And if we do have people that are committing petty larceny or stupid stuff because they're on drugs, while they're in jail, I think we should give them therapy or something or education or some kind of thing while they're incarcerated to ensure that because I believe the first time Andrew got in trouble was I want to say a DUI or something. He had a little weed in his thing, and he got incarcerated. And I think that's the snowball that got this addiction to where it is. I think it was the incarceration to start. I think it was just at the jail. It was for a couple of days or a week. But I think that's how it started. Because obviously all the bad people are together. There's all kinds of drugs within our jails. I don't know. We took a visit. And they say, hell, drones are dropping drugs through on the yard all the time. So, to me, that was the catalyst. And I think that's where we really need to focus on. Is once these folks are there, we need some kind of catalyst that gets them moving in the right direction.
Well, there could be a program in the jails where therapists come in, because the jails already have nurses that administer medications, like, some people need insulin, what have you. So why can't, while they're in there, instead of just serving out their time, because if they're there a month, 2 months, 3 months, they're going to come out, they're going to do it all over again. So let's try to stop that process by getting them some help. Let's do some meetings. Let's do some therapy. Most of them have state insurance anyways, so it's going to be covered. And if the therapist can't get in there, let's do it virtual. And we all know that virtual works.
Well, and that's where Day Report is such a great thing, because it keeps them in the community, it keeps them working, it keeps them taking care of their families, it keeps them locked in while they have to be accountable, while they're tested, while they have to have treatment, while they have to go to meetings, while they have to have counseling. I mean, a Day Report has really been a godsend in our community. It's saved us a lot of money and saved a lot of lives.
Yes, it has.
Kresha, I want to thank you for coming in. I know it's really tough for you to come on, but I really
touchy
think
situation.
You're listening to WRNR and watching us on TV 10. We'll be right back for a quick wrap-up.